Right now, the day's biggest news stories from a Vegas perspective. This is the Vegas Take with Sharp and Shapiro.
Coming back at you on the Vegas Take, Chris Wynn, Pat Casale in for Brian Shapiro and J.D. Sharp, live 101.5 FM, 720 AM, K-Dawn. As we get set for the 11 o'clock hour here, it's time to jump in and talk a little local action when it comes to the gridiron, Pat. And, of course, it's been a lot of years, right, that it's been going on out there at Sam Boyd Stadium. All kinds of action from UNLV football to bowl games, and it's starting to wind down.
Playoffs.
It's almost over, and it's what better person and people to have on than former UNLV Rebel football players. And, of course, I'm talking about Caleb Herring. It seems like just yesterday, Pat, he was out there slinging it and beating down teams like, those Central Michigan Chippewas and the likes. And Caleb Herring joins us now here on the Vegas Take on the phone line. He is the color commentator, of course, for UNLV football. Caleb, we appreciate the time. How are you?
Good morning.
I'm good, my friend. How you doing? Good morning, guys.
We're doing great. UNLV coming off a win on Saturday as they get the victory 38-35 over the Spartans of San Jose State, get the late touchdown, of course, the late pick also from Colo as they're able to ice the victory in the final home game out there at Sam Boyd Stadium. But, of course, there's a lot of focus, as there should be, on the history out there, and a lot of former players got a chance to head out there and enjoy the experience probably for the final time for UNLV out there. And I got to believe for you, it was a special experience, no doubt.
Absolutely. All the guys that came back together, they had about 200 to 250 alumni from previous teams, all the way back to the first team to ever play for the Rebels. So they representatives from each decade of UNLV football in the past were represented out there on the field for the coin toss. So, of course, it was really fun to get all the guys back together and start reminiscing on the good old days. And the talk obviously started about strapping back up eventually and getting out there again. But it was a cool weekend, actually. It started on Friday night where we all got together and got to tour the new Fertitta Complex, which was bittersweet for some of us because we knew what we had for facilities and kind of envious of the new guys coming in. But again, supportive of the program and the direction it's headed. And it's really cool for Desiree and for Steve Stallworth, who actually got us all together and sent out the mass email to get this thing rolling, to have us all come back and kind of make us feel a part of this program again and where the program's headed. So seeing that peek into the future. And then, like you said, on Saturday, all of us out there for the coin toss on the field, wearing Letterman jackets and rooting on the guys as they pulled off a really good win, a fitting way to close the doors of Sam Boyd for Rebel football because it was a show. It was a nail-biter, and, of course, it was a win. So a good way to end the historic run at Sam Boyd Stadium.
Caleb, this is Pat Casale. When I look at the history of the UNLV football, and the last decade has been very, very ups and downs, been very difficult. How excited are you with the new stadium, the new digs? I mean, the weight room looks phenomenal. I mean, what do you think is going to happen, and what do you think the turn is going to be?
Well, it's a definite turn of a corner for a program. And like you said, the ups and downs have been there throughout the last decade or so, more down than up, unfortunately. But, usually in a program that's struggling the way that the Rebels have, you don't get a massive turnaround as far as facility upgrades or stadium upgrade the way that the Rebels did. And, I'd like to think that Tony Sanchez, of course, had a lot to do with that and his ability to galvanize the community and get the support he needed as far as the funding for stuff like this. But it excites me. I think where the program's headed, I think we've been behind the curve as far as competing with conference and national facilities, and that's a big part of the recruiting business these days. But we've been behind that curve for such a long time, and I think finally getting around it and getting this thing done as far as the complex and getting this new stadium that's going to be the best in the country. I mean, no college team is going to be able to say that they're playing in the type of facilities or have the type of practice facilities that the Rebels are going to have. And it's the first time in the history of the program, really, that can be said. And so I think that's a definite advantage going forward in the future. Of course, the wins and losses are still to be determined, and that's you got to roll the ball out there on Saturdays and figure those things out. I know this offseason is going to be full of some decisions to be made as far as the direction of the program going in the future as far as personnel. But the facilities that we've now have and that we will have in 2020 are a bright spot, and should lead to some future success as far as program building.
What about the players? Any word on the players that may be coming in here one way or the other, or are they still waiting on wait and see to see who the coach is going to be?
Well, there's actually a few players that have come out and said it. I mean, it's no secret these days with social media and you know, how rumors fly about the potential of a coaching change with Tony obviously being on a bit of a hot seat here. He's out on the recruiting trail, still recruiting, and he's getting some guys to commit. Notably, some from Sarah High School in California have come out and said, you know, the quarterback there said basically, we understand that Coach Sanchez may not be back, and we would love to play for him, but his commitment is to the Rebel program. And there's been a number of guys that have come out and said that along the recruiting trail, as far as those guys that are coming in from high school and from junior college as well. I'm still excited about coming to the program, even with the question mark over if Coach Sanchez will be their coach next season. So that speaks well, again, I think, in my personal opinion, to having these facilities done. And I think it takes the pressure off of who the coach is going to be and puts it a little bit more on where you're going to be playing and what you're going to be playing for. So some of the guys that have committed have already come out and said that they're still committed to UNLV regardless of the coaching situation next year. And, you know, there's a great group of guys that are returning as well that are on the roster this year. I mean, of course, Kenny Noblat, who's coming on late in the season, playing some good football and learning and growing at the quarterback position. He's going to be around for a long time as a Rebel. Randall Grimes, who just transferred over, he's a big player, a big playmaker at the receiving spot. Charles Williams, of course, will be back. He's a junior. He'll be back for his senior campaign. Guys like Tylee Collins and Makai Stevenson at the receiver spot who didn't have mega years because of some of the transition that was going on offensively. But those guys will be back, and they're already a part of the program. So hopefully those pieces stay in place, and the pieces that are getting picked up along the recruiting trail are also staying in place. Again, we don't know for sure what's going to happen with Coach Sanchez, and that is a decision that has to be made going into this offseason. But it does look bright for the future as far as the players that have decided to come in the future and those that we do have on the roster right now that will be returning next season.
And look, you yourself, Caleb and Pat, you just addressed the monstrous elephant that is in the room. And, of course, that is the future of Tony Sanchez as the head coach at UNLV. And, look, I think a lot of us that saw this hiring, you know, back 5 years ago, and we thought to ourselves, look, we look at it as an experiment, really, because let's be honest about it. It's not something that is normally done where you take somebody out of the high school ranks and you plunk them into a Division I college football program. So after observing what has transpired over the past 5 years with Tony Sanchez, what do you think would be the motivation or the rationale to retain Tony Sanchez as head coach at UNLV?
Well, of course, there's arguments for both sides. I think if my personal opinion about the matter is I think what UNLV needs from a coaching standpoint is more consistency. And I think we've shuffled the deck on coaches before and basically pushing the reset button on the program is I don't think the answer for a program like UNLV where you don't have, the support, I guess, of the community or you're not dealing with the cream of the crop as far as the athletes that you're getting at this point right now. Of course, you want to get there. But I think the arguments are that Tony has done something that the past regimes, every of the last 4 coaches that have come to the Rebel program and left, come and gone, they've all said the same thing upon leaving, that the facilities that they have, it's hard to work uphill and to compete as far as recruiting and getting out on the trail and getting the guys to come to the program that you want when you don't have things like the facilities in place or the community support in place from their perspective. And we all understand that the community does support the program, but, of course, get impatient with the wins not being there. But Tony's been able to do something even without the wins, and he's had some successful seasons, not a bowl appearance, but some 5-win seasons along the way, outside of this last season where he steadily improved in the win column. But he's done something even without the wins that no coach has ever been able to do for the program, and that's really catapult the program ahead of the rest of the conference with that Fertitta complex. And I don't think Tony I think Tony is the only person that was hired that could have gotten that done because of what he was to the community and his time at Bishop Gorman and his relationships with the community, that he was able to get that done. And I think that's to his credit, a part of it. And of course, there was skepticism about his, the high school coach making the transition straight to the head coach and the college football team, of course, met with some skepticism. But what he was able to do, and coaching is more than just X's and O's on the field. It's especially the head coach spot. It's more than that. It's about being able to be kind of an administrator and bridge the gap between the program and the community and administration and so on and so forth. There's so much that you have to be able to do. And he's, I think, a good fit as a head coach. And I think, especially for UNLV, I don't know if it worked anywhere else but UNLV, but because of who he was in his community, I think he was right on time. So the argument for him going forward to remain, I think, is that you're already going through enough transition. And I think he got this building done, this strategic complex, and he should be able to see the fruits of it also transitioning into a new stadium. I think it's a little bit easier to make that transition with somebody already in-house. You don't want to add to transition by swapping out a wholesale coaching change because, of course, with a head coach comes new coordinators, new staff, all that stuff to go along with it. So I think just to limit the transition for another year, that would be my argument for. Of course, the argument against is the wins and losses weren't there, and obviously you take a step back in the win column this season. With not even getting to 5 wins this year. That's out the window now with only 1 game left to play. So there's a lot of reasons that can go back and forth, and it's really just going to be a decision that the program has to be confident in where they're going to go moving forward. If the decision is to go without Tony, I think he's man enough to understand that he understands the business as well as anybody, and talking to him in the conversation we had, he understands it. Of course, he would like to stay, but he understands it. And if the program has an idea of where they want to go moving forward and a concrete answer to what the program will look like absent Tony Sanchez, and I think you pull the trigger and you go after that. But I think there's a lot of uncertainty around that you don't want to create undue turmoil unless you have a clear-cut path on where you want to go in the future as a program.
Caleb Herron joining us, color commentator and former UNLV quarterback. We also have another outstanding former Rebel on the phone lines. He was the pride of Booker T. Washington High School with UNLV back in the late 60s, early 70s. He is Nate Hawkins joining us now on the phone line. Nate, we appreciate your time. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. Thanks for having me.
Nate, of course, we were talking with Caleb about his experiences this past weekend being out at Sam Boyd as it's the end of an era from a stadium standpoint with UNLV football. Wanted to get your take on your experiences over the weekend, getting a chance to head out there and jump on the field and see the Rebels for the final time out there.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was fantastic because they had a bunch of players coming back, past players, and they made us all honorary coin toss. And just being with some of the fellows that I played with and fellows that come through the university and played at Sam Boyd, man, that was fantastic.
What do you think of the new facilities? Have you had a chance to, when you did the walkthrough, what did you think?
The fertility center, man, I could believe it. When I was there, we had one university gym. I couldn't even count all the university gyms they had now. State of the art, man, it's something. I believe it's really going to be good for recruiting for UNLV.
So, Nate, when you think about Sam Boyd Stadium and playing games out there, can you pinpoint, was there one moment, one moment where you had a chance and where you'll always remember as far as your playing days at UNLV out there?
Man, I got plenty of memories. I know about 2 or 3 of them that it comes to mind right away, though.
Mm-hmm.
But like the first one was like we played North Dakota. It was ranked. North Dakota was ranked, and the first play of the game, we went 80 yards on the pass, and I was fortunate to be on the receiving end of that. And I also remember I know we lost the Rebel the first game, but the next game we played New Mexico and Holland, and that was a shootout. And there I scored 4 touchdowns. So I got plenty of fun memories. I scored 4 receiving touchdowns, which is still a record. I think Devontae tied it, but 42 years it had been stayed as a record there.
Did you play with Mike Thomas? Did you play with Mike Thomas when you were there?
Oh, no. I played from 68 to 71.
Okay, so Mike came after you.
Yeah. So, Nate, Caleb gave his perspective. He comes from, a younger generation of UNLV football players, but I want to get your thoughts also on moving into this brand new, spectacular stadium, just off the Strip, on the Las Vegas Strip. I can imagine yourself as someone who, went to college here in Las Vegas back then, and now seeing what the program is about to embark on, where you're going into this, beautiful, stadium where they're actually sharing it with an NFL team. That has got to be something that's kind of mind-jarring, I'm sure, for a lot of people that remember where this program once was and now where it's about to head to.
Yeah, it's going to be, 50 years later.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
And I imagine it's about time, but it's that's definitely a plus being able to play in the fabulous city of Las Vegas, and you at your college team, and the Raiders. Everybody looking forward to the Raiders being now. So I think UNLV, they take them out the desert and put them in a state-of-the-art new stadium. It can't be nothing but for a plus,
Oh, no doubt, right? And look, there's been a lot of programs. And Caleb, I want to get your take on this too, because look, there's been a lot of programs that have been able to ascend as programs. I always bring up, when I'm talking about UNLV, I always bring up UCF, because UCF, again, a mid-level program, a lot of players and teams that nobody even paid attention to up until like the 2000s. And then Caleb, all of a sudden, they make the move. They get a brand new stadium on campus. The game day experience is better, and there's almost this transformation of the program. And as someone like myself who wants to look at this UNLV football program, Caleb, from a glass half full perspective, I got to believe that this is only going to be something that's going to be positive for this UNLV football program moving forward.
That's right. UCF is a great example of what happens. I think for whatever reason in college sports, a lot of people tend to think of it backwards. I think they want the wins and the success to come, but aren't willing, and then want to get the investment after. And once the wins are there, then they'll invest their time or their effort or their energy or money even into a program. But you look at, and UCF being a prime example, there's other programs as well where for whatever reason they got it in their minds that they're going to invest and feed into the program. And UCF did that. And then later on, we're talking about undefeated teams. And it's a little bit down the road, but once you make that investment, it comes and you get a return on that investment tenfold. And the wins may start to come during the future. And that's still a part of the process to work on. But I think this is the first time you can look since the inception of the program where you say they're ahead, they're where they're supposed to be as far as investing and giving the tools necessary to get recruiting done, to get guys excited about the program, to get the community excited about coming out to games. Like, I imagine that next year when they open the doors to Allegiant for the first time on that Saturday, that first Saturday of the season, I imagine there's going to be a huge crowd just for the simple fact that there's this new shiny toy in town. And you see what happens, like with Vegas Golden Knights. If you come out and support and the team starts to win, the ball gets rolling and the energy behind the program gets going. And that's a part of the college experience that I think guys are looking for when they're coming out of high school. These 4- and 5-star recruits, they're looking for that big-time experience, that big stage where everybody wants to watch them. And for the first time, I think we have created that atmosphere where the spotlight's on, where, like Nate said, pulling them out of the desert, putting them right in prime time on the strip. Mm-hmm. This is the show. This is the show we want you to watch when you come to Vegas. And it's the college football team that's been here for 50 years, but for whatever reason has been hidden away and tucked away. And I can't say enough, and I know it sounds it, but I applaud Tony for doing it. He embraced the strip when he first came on, embraced the showgirls coming and photo shoots and the Jabberwockies even.
And the fancy new field out there. Yeah,
absolutely. The roulette table field and those kind of things that were kind of nobody ever did with UNLV. And that's just, it was a kind of a shame that big marketing and advertising tool was wasted in a sense. And now with the things that have happened and the complex and the stadium, it's going to be plopped right in the middle of Las Vegas, and it's only going to do great things for the program.
Caleb, I'll say this. If you look at Nike, what it did for Oregon became a power in football. I mean, in baseball, they're all this, but football specifically, we have those facilities. The one thing I'll give Tony credit for is we are consistently competitive, whereas prior to him, we were getting our butts trashed week in and week out. When we win a couple of games. He has been competitive. I mean, there's been some games this year, like the San Diego State, that missed field goal. I mean, that was a heartbreaker. I got to say this. I would give Sanchez the other year, but especially with the new facilities, and he's out recruiting, so he's doing his job where a lot of coaches are like, they know they're done, they back away. So I think that's a positive. But if we can get the same response that they did in Oregon with that facility, Chris, it's going to be good times here in UNLV.
Yeah, I could see it. And Nate, I want to get your take. Do you think Tony Sanchez has earned the right, and do you think he's going to end up coming back as the head coach with UNLV football next season?
Yeah, I agree with Caleb on that. I think he was instrumental in the fertility center and the program, and they have some good stats. I know he's not putting up the W's like everybody wants, but I would like to see his vision come through, at least, going to the new stadium.
Nate Hawkins.
I'll just add this real quick. I'm sorry, guys, but I'll just add this real quick, too. Something that it has been talked about a lot this season, but a catastrophic for the team this year was the absence of Coach Cotton, who nobody could have foreseen his health needs coming up. He's been the offensive coordinator with Tony since he's been at UNLV. That his health and him not being present with the team is something I think really affected the outcome of the season and the wins and losses this year. The offensive production, of course, this year took a big dip, and I think it was mainly because missing its offensive coordinator and Coach Cotton, who's doing better, with all thanks, and of course that his health was a priority. But that's something I think, looking back at the season, the wins and losses may have been a little bit of a different story with the way the defense played this season if the offense was performing at its best all season long. So. But, yeah, I think Tony and the staff have been on the right track and been doing the right things by the program, and I think it'd be good to see them come back for another year.
Former UNLV Rebels, Nate Hawkins, as well as Caleb Herring, joining us here on the Vegas Take as it's the end of an era, Pat. As Sam Boyd Stadium, there'll be no more UNLV football played in that stadium. Of course, the bowl game coming up this year, but after that, that's all she wrote, and it's the beginning of the new shiny new Allegiant Stadium era for UNLV football. So Caleb and Nate, you guys, we appreciate very much you spending some time on a Monday. Hope you have a great Thanksgiving, and we'll talk to you again soon, okay?
Same to you.
All right, guys, take care.
Have a great holiday.
Thanks, Nate. Thanks, Caleb. Happy Thanksgiving to both
too,
you guys. Yes, it's the Vegas Take coming away live here on a Monday. I'm Chris Wynn, along with Pat Casale, joining you here on the Vegas Take. We've got a new band, a Vegas band, coming in studio live. We're going to get a chance to talk to them. But you know what else they want to talk about, Pat? They want to talk some UNLV basketball, because we did have a UNLV hoops game over the weekend.
We did?
Didn't exactly go that well. So we're going to talk some UNLV hoops as well as talk about their show coming up next weekend as we continue. Chris Wynn, Pat Casale here, live. It's coming your way on 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDON. We'll be back right after this.